me turn that's a little loud. What's that? Oh, let me. It's also very short, so I got to hit start and replay. What's up, man? It is here. It's debate night. I can't believe it. We've been waiting a long time for this, and it's finally here. And we're gonna go live. We're gonna simulcast this puppy. We're gonna simulcast this sucker here in just a minute. I gotta really fix this. I gotta really fix this music. I gotta fix this music issue. And we'll get to listen, we got a lot of stuff we gotta get to. In fact, we're gonna start right now. Let me bring myself on the old screen here. Oh, ta-da, there I am. What's up? Listen, a couple things. First of all, I may look a little different because, as I told you earlier today, I changed out my camera for my cell phone, because my iPhone camera, and I use. Oh, hold on, let me move that towel because that looks really weird in the background. There we go. Ta-da! And I switched out my camera because my regular camera was overheating. And it was weird. It was only on like 30, 45 minutes. And all of a sudden it said internal temperature is too hot. It's going to overheat. And so I did. What is going on here? I am just disheveled. I've been going all day, man. I've been running around all day. I've been getting crowd reactions. I've been hanging out with Kamala supporters. As soon as I sat down, let me collect my thoughts and we'll go one at a time. So the camera's different. I did the different camera because I didn't want this to overheat, and this is my actual iPhone, which it's actually twofold because, number one, it has a better light sensor for at nighttime. Sometimes at night, what happens is if the light sensor in the camera is not that good, then it looks horrible, and it looked like I was in a murder mystery, and I was about to be murdered. That's how dark the whole room looked. So I switched out the camera, and also I know this one won't overheat, or at least, knock on wood, I hope it won't overheat. I also thought, too, because what I did earlier was, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's actually pretty noisy. The AC unit is right there. It's right above, like it's right out of the shot, but it's right there. And during the show today, I didn't want the distracting blowing noise to be distracting, if that makes sense. So I turned the AC off, and it got really hot in the room. I don't know if that's what caused the camera to overheat. Like, if I didn't overheat, I don't know why the camera would overheat. But that's basically where we are. That's basically where we are today. Look, we've got ABC ready to go here. And I don't know, this should just be the Chrome browser. Let me just double check that. And I want to make sure it's just Google Chrome. There we go. This is just because I have my Twitter up too. I'm going to have to be live tweeting. So if you see me look at my phone, or if I dip out for a minute, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm just, I got a live tweet. There's a lot of stuff that has to go on today. There's the debate. There's the comments about the debate live here on the stream. There's the fact checking of Kamala Harris, which we're going to do. And then there's the people ask about the drinking game. People ask about the drinking game too. You know what? I mean, I'm not going to lie. I have a little bit of Cabernet left from last night. And I poured myself a glass just to unwind, because when you spend the day with Kamala Harris supporters, it gets a little crazy. But anyway, so here's the deal. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the camera and the noise and everything else. So the AC is right here. I turned the AC all the way off, and I don't know if that caused my camera to overheat or not, but that's just, I didn't want to take any chances because we're going to be here for a while. The debate starts at 9. I don't know what these tunnels are that I'm watching. What are these tunnels? We don't need to watch the tunnels right now. The debate starts at 9 and it goes for 90 minutes. So that's going to be way longer than the show was today. And my camera overheated 45 minutes in. So that's number one. I cranked the AC to 68, by the way, now. So it's frigidly cold in here. And I did that because, I'm drinking Cabernet. And Cabernet in French wine cellars, the average temperature is about 52 degrees Fahrenheit. So I wanted my Cabernet to be reminiscent of the Cabernets from France. No, I'm just kidding. It's because it's hot. And I didn't want I didn't want to overheat tonight either. So I've got the nice, crisp, cool 68 degree. Also, I'm not paying the electric bill. I'm not paying the electric bill here. So what do I care? I already paid for the room. I'm going to suck up all the energy that I can. And I'm going to keep myself as cool as possible. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is, right before I went live, right on the street, and they're kind of gone now, a massive protest just broke out. Like, all of a sudden, I'm sitting here and I'm getting ready and I'm making sure the camera's ready. I'm making sure the wine's ready. I'm making sure everything's ready to go. Plugging in my headphones, putting on my hat, changing my shirt so I have a nice clean shirt. And all of a sudden, I start hearing screaming and yelling and bullhorns and whistles, because, the whistle is, like, for protesters, apparently they just want to be as annoying as humanly possible. And so what I did was I looked out the window and I saw the entire street in front of my hotel was jam-packed with protesters, and they were all yelling, "Free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine, free, free, free Palestine, free, free, free Palestine." And that's what they were doing over and over and over again. And I thought to myself, son of a gun, right before I go live, these people start chanting. But what I didn't realize is it wasn't a stationary, stable protest. I just got a message from Hannah. Are you stoked? I am. I am also live right now. Say hi. Say hi. Everyone, Hannah's going to say hi here in just a minute. I guess she didn't know. I was live. That's the thing. When she doesn't. Oh, my B. Hi, friends. There you go. Okay. That's Hannah. By the way, just now that Hannah's done with the show, she's like, oh, you're what? You're where? You're in Philadelphia? Oh. No, but I did send her a photo today. I took a photo today and I sent it to her because I like to send her photos of things that she's not doing that I know will make her jealous. And I went to the lobby of the hotel today. And by the way, there's a crackling in my ear. There's a lot going on now that I'm just not a fan of. I don't know if you guys hear a crackle. How's the audio, by the way? How's the audio and the video? Everybody let me know if the audio and the video is sufficiently is to your liking. Because I want to make sure that the audio and the video is. I have a little crackle in my ear. It could just be my headphone. I'm not really sure. Hopefully it doesn't affect you guys. But anyway, so I'm going outside and I'm going to get some B-roll and I'm going to go talk to these protesters, and I'll show you the video in a minute if you haven't seen it yet because it's gold. And I walk into the lobby, and guess who's in the lobby of my hotel? Peter Doocy from Fox News. And so I said, "Hey, what's up, Peter Doocy?" And he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Mark Kaye. I'm friends with Kilmeade." And he goes, "Oh." And I said, "Let me get a quick photo." He goes, "Sure." And so, yes, I totally dropped Brian Kilmeade's name so I could get a photo with Peter Doocy. So, but I mean, hey, look, I mean, all these years hanging out with Brian Kilmeade, they have to be good for something, don't they? So anyway, Peter Doocy's here in my hotel. And yes, he's as tall as you think he is. He's even actually taller than you think he is, but a very nice guy. Good audio, no crackling. Sounds good, but you're looking warm. That's okay. Don't worry about how I look. Don't worry about just how I look. Worry about how I sound. And really, what we want to worry about is how Donald Trump and Kamala Harris look. And I learned a couple of things today just before this broadcast that I didn't know. The first thing I learned was that we knew that Donald Trump won the coin toss. We reported on that when it happened like a week ago. We knew that Donald Trump was going to have the last word, and we knew that Kamala Harris chose the podium on the right. But what I didn't know, and which I just tweeted out or X'd out, is that Kamala Harris has a mini podium. She got a mini podium. Her boss has a mini desk and a mini Oval Office. Kamala Harris has a mini podium because she's not as tall as Donald Trump. And if she had a full-size podium, she would look like a small, dainty woman. And I guess she didn't want to look like a small, dainty woman. She didn't want Donald Trump to like tower over her. So she requested let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me go to my X real quick. She requested a smaller podium, and they gave her one because she's the vice president of the United States. Here it is. Look at this. I don't know if you can see it. Let me make this bigger. There it is. Her podium's like a foot smaller. It'll look normal on TV, but when you put them side by side, you can see Donald Trump's podium is large. She's got a mini podium. She's got like a little bitty podium for like a little bitty vice president, which is it's cute. It's like a little dollhouse podium. Also, this is kind of annoying me. Let me fix this quickly because I don't like this white line at the bottom of the screen. It's gonna annoy me all day long, and I thought I had it fixed, but I guess I didn't. Now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna lock this, and then I'm gonna show you. So if you guys are wondering what I was doing all day, I went outside because I knew in Philadelphia there'd be a lot of people gathered. And I had a videographer, a guy I hired off of LinkedIn named Marcus, and he was fantastic. The guy was amazing. And so Marcus and I, we were just running around, man. And he showed up. He had a camera, and I love doing this stuff on my own, but it's so much easier when you have a videographer. The next thing I get is a videographer. Like for my birthday, when my wife says, "What do you want for your birthday?" I'm going to be like, "Oh, I want a professional videographer to follow me around all day." Probably I won't. Our anniversaries come. Maybe that's more like a Christmas item, probably. Although my 50th birthday, I feel like a videographer is a fair gift. But anyway, we went around and man, we had a blast. And this is just, we were out for 2 hours, but this is just a fraction, a portion of what we were able. This is just the Kamala Harris people. I'm going to do a whole separate video tomorrow with the Donald Trump supporters. But if you missed this on YouTube, you have to watch this. It's only like 6 minutes. There's plenty of time before the debate. Watch. This was a fun day. Watch.
You have a bullhorn. I do have a bullhorn.
Wait, what? Why isn't it? Okay, hold on. Why isn't it playing? Oh, I know what I need to do. Hang on. Here we go.
I'm here with Peter.
Nope, that didn't work either. Hang on. Why is it working? Let's try here.
I'm here with Peter. Peter, you have a...
That's what...
Peter, you have a bullhorn.
All right, well, that's...
You have a bullhorn. What's the bullhorn for?
Never mind. It's not working, and I'm not sure why it's... You know, this is supposed to be... Everything's supposed to be working perfectly. I tested everything, and now I'm having some issues. Let me go back to me. Now, see, where did I go? Where did I go? I disappeared? Guys, this isn't cool. Unlock. Do you see me? Great. Benda, what did I do? Everything's ruined. What the hell happened? Oh, wait, there's something. Oh, wait, there I am. Oh, hi, I'm back. That's weird. Wait, oh, I'm back here too. All right, that's really weird. Let me try something else here. I really wanted to show you this video because I thought it was cool. But I guess maybe I'm just... Oh, here it is. All right, let's try this. What is that now? Here, let's try this.
I'm here with Peter.
There we go.
You have a bullhorn. I do have a bullhorn. What's the bullhorn for? So I can troll Republicans like you. What's your name, ma'am?
Susan Friedenberg.
Do you have a favorite in... Do you have a favorite in the debate tonight?
Obviously.
There's a lot of different people on a lot of different sides of the aisle. Well, I guess there's just two sides. They're just on either side of the aisle. This guy has a sign that just says loser, and I'm not really 100% clear who he means. We're gonna go ask him. Your sign just says loser on the front.
That's right, yeah.
Is it for anyone in particular?
It's for Donald Trump.
Did you have a similar sign for Kamala Harris that says winner?
No.
No? What, maybe in the works? Sir, are you free for an interview? No? Free for an interview? No? No. Give me your best, like a whole bunch of MAGA hat wearing conservatives, Trump flag waving American patriots walks by. Hit me with what you got.
More corporate tax cuts for billionaires. I love Trump because I pay more federal income tax than a billionaire does. Thank you, Donald Trump, for the 2017 corporate tax cuts. I love paying more federal income tax than billionaires like Donald Trump. He gave himself a f***ing tax f***ing cut.
You know, it's no my body, my choice, but I see what you're getting at. All right, so I came over. I thought this was a big T for Trump, but apparently it's an IUD. It's a giant inflatable IUD, and this is the Americans for Contraception. I tried to get an interview, and then I told them who I was, and apparently now everyone's too busy to talk. So, but I think this speaks for itself. All right, I'm here with Nick. Nick, where are you from?
LA and Oregon.
LA and Oregon, so you're a dual citizen.
Sure, we're all citizens of the world.
That's a fair point.
You assholes over there pay more federal taxes than Donald Trump. Suckers, free speech. You can't arrest me or I sue and make a lot of money.
If you sued the Philadelphia police and you won millions of dollars, would you rather Kamala Harris's tax plan or Donald Trump's tax plan?
I'm a f***ing capitalist. Donald Trump's tax plan.
Sir, what is your name?
My name Ronald.
Ronald, what's this flag you got here?
Flag is Kamala Harris.
All right, are you a Kamala?
I'm in the White House. I'm a Kamala Harris fan.
Yeah, you have a flag here. What does your flag say?
It says Free Palestine, right? It's the Palestinian flag with text imposed over it that says Free Palestine, which is one of the slogans, right, that we've been using.
You don't sell Trump stuff either.
Well, I do sell both because I'm also a businessman.
Yeah.
And but I'm here with with Kamala Harris because I'm in support for her today.
Okay, all right. So politically, you're supporting Kamala Harris, but you're a
Yeah.
businessman, so you'll sell anything.
Not anything.
Not anything. No, yeah. So you're pro-Palestine.
I personally am against the military action that Israel is taking.
Okay.
Right, so I am contra Israel's military, right? That implies being pro-Palestine in a certain sense, yeah. Definitely, I am pro-Palestine. I feel like everyone should be pro-Palestine, and everyone should be pro-Jew in a certain sense, right?
Seems contradictory.
No, I don't think it does, right? That's why I said it that way.
Okay.
I keep it like in the truck if somebody actually want it. Then I bring it out.
You
But,
keep it in
some
the
people, Some people come past with the mad dog face.
Right.
Like, oh, no Trump? Yeah, I got Trump. What you need? And I
So
get
it's like when you're so you're like, all right, psst, what do you got? Come meet me out back.
Meet me around back.
Meet me around back. I'll
I
get
don't
you a
want
Trump
to get
shirt.
beat down for having his stuff.
Steve, you're from Tennessee.
Correct, Springfield, Tennessee.
And what brings you here today?
We're just visiting historic sites.
Yeah, you know there's a big presidential debate tonight.
Yes, we do.
Did you come here for that, or?
No, just a coincidence.
Oh, next time maybe plan better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are you going to do here today? Are you going to
Just post it up, right?
Yeah?
I'm just here. I'm trying to give a voice to people who otherwise would not have a voice.
Right.
Right. I'm really malcontent with the 40,000 dead Palestinians that my tax dollars are funding. So I am here expressing my discontent with how my money is being used to kill innocent babies.
You don't seem malcontent. You just seem very chill. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a candidate that you think is going to do better than the other?
Well, we're rooting for Kamala, for sure.
You're rooting for Kamala Harris.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
What do you like about Kamala Harris?
I think she's just a better candidate. Like her views on most of the issues.
Yeah. Any issues in particular, being from Tennessee, that you go, you know what, Kamala's the right one?
Well, I guess one of the biggest one is women's rights.
Yeah. Women's rights?
For abortion and,
Yeah.
control their own bodies.
Yeah. That's a big issue for you.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, perfect. Do you know a lot of women?
I know a few.
You know a few?
Like, I am really upset also, and I think we should be upset. And so, like, my calm demeanor that I've cultivated to help me be happy, like, I don't want that to be like a facade.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're calm and happy, but also really furious.
Yeah, but I don't want I don't want to let my fury boil over into violent action. I want to be peaceful protest. So I'm really foregrounding my peace so that my voice will continue to be allowed to be expressed, so that I can give voice to the voiceless, etc.
I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you think Donald Trump does not support women's rights?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, I just think he's a threat to everybody. I think he's a threat to democracy, a threat to decency, a threat to morality.
Wait a minute, did you plan that? You planned that.
What can I say?
How did you get that bus to drive by right when you were talking about Donald Trump being a threat to morality?
Well, I planned that a lot better than I did coming to Philadelphia.
Okay, there you go. I mean, look, it was a lot of fun, and that was just a portion. That was just a portion of the people that we came in contact with and that we met today. I do want to say, by the way, while we're waiting for ABC, and we have 10 minutes now, let's count down 10 minutes to debate time. I do want to say, first of all, thank you on Rumble, which is hopping, by the way. Rumble's hopping. Hello, Rumble. Again, we can't share. Rumble's their own entity. We can't share the Rumble rants on the stream, but Bodie's mom, I do want to point out, Bodie's mom dropped a $40 Rumble rant, and Bodie's mom, we really appreciate that. She wrote, "Mark, go grab a Burbo." Don't worry, at 10:30, I will be downstairs at the bar waiting for Peter Ducey, my new BFF. I'm going to change the light a little bit. I can do that, I think. There we go. I think I was a little yellow, and I feel like that was a lighting issue, and I feel like now I'm a little bit not as yet. I don't look as jaundiced as I did moments ago. And then we are getting a bunch of super chats, and this is really helpful. We really appreciate all the super chats. We got this one from Christiane Haggerty, who this is like her second super chat of the day. And I know that because she said, I'm going to put it down here. Look at that so that we can all see it. She said, I can't afford a new camera, but here's $5 towards a new one. That's so sweet because my camera was overheating. Christiane, I'm so excited. Now, she's coming tomorrow to our Patriot meetup, which is going to be at the National Mechanics Bar and Restaurant in historic Philadelphia. If you're in or around the Philadelphia area tomorrow at 7 p.m., come hang out with me and Christiane and a bunch of other Patriots as we enjoy. Well, maybe I'll have a bourbon. I'll have a bourbon then with the $40 that I just got from Bodie's mom. Jen Salisbury also dropped a super chat, and it's a long one. So Mark, this is a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Hey, Mark, I have all of my favorite ladies for Trump watching tonight. Please say hi to Afton, Angie, and Chansey, and remind us all to send those super chats. Jen, absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, hello, Afton, Angie, and Chansey. I'm so glad that all the ladies for Trump are watching tonight, and I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the simulcast. And yes, everybody, please drop those super chats because, because Jen said so. And Jen's a very smart person. We also got one from Never Stop. Love the name. Never Stop drops $10, a $9.99 super chat. Thanks for bringing us the news and your humor. Loving it. Never Stop. I appreciate that. We appreciate everybody. And look, if you can't super chat, that's no problem. You're watching, and watching is just as important. You can always share this broadcast. You can make sure that you're subscribed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's Chris Christie. Sorry. I don't know why I just laughed. I mean, I know why I just laughed, because it's Chris Christie. It's Chris Christie. And do we want to hear what kind of anti-Trump sludge Chris Christie's spewing?
Give him any kind of clues.
So let me ask you the question. Let me ask you the question I tried to ask Tom Cotton. He didn't exactly give me an answer, but you will. Which Trump is going to show up tonight? You know what I mean by that. Which Trump?
That's a dumb question, by the way.
I think at the beginning of the debate, the Trump who will show up will be the calmer Donald Trump. He knows inherently after the 2020 first debate against Joe Biden that the other Donald Trump is not the one that's a winning formula. The question's going to be, will he be able to continue to maintain that approach through questioning by David and Lindsay and through any comments that Vice President Harris makes in his direction? And that'll be the key to how he performs tonight.
Wow, he's looking bad, man. He looks like he's, I mean, he never looked, I'm not going to, I don't want to say he looks unhealthy, because that would denote that at some point in his life he looked healthy, and that's just not the case. But he looks tired, or he's saggy, or just, I don't know. It just seems, he seems more angry and upset than he usually does. Anyway, so we appreciate all of the super chats for sure, and we appreciate all of the Rumble rants. We just got another one from Ace Jams 01, $5 Rumble rant, and he just wrote, "Truckers for Trump, amen." We appreciate all of our truckers, especially the ones for Trump. So we're keeping an eye on the Rumble rants over here on my phone. And like I said, I'm going to have to tweet as well once we get going. But this is going to be fun. We're going to all watch the debate. It should be, very interesting. We're going to comment. Drinking game. Somebody asked about a drinking game earlier. So there's a couple things that Kamala Harris says repeatedly, which could make for good drinking game triggers. One of them is, "Let me be clear." Let me be clear. So if you want, anytime she says, "Let me be clear," we could go ahead and just bottoms up. Let me be clear. Something like that. The other thing that I don't know if she's going to have the opportunity to say it, but I'm sure she'll try, is, "I'm speaking. I'm speaking. I'm speaking. I'm sorry. I'm speaking." So if that's the case, if we get a couple of "I'm speakings," then that's another opportunity that we could drink as well. If a fly lands on anyone's head, because during the last debate, a fly landed on somebody's head, and that somebody, by the way, was Mike Pence. He's not going to be here, so that's that's all right. But if a fly lands on anyone's head, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move these actually up to the top, because I feel like they should be at the top and not at the bottom. And that's Faith B904, $2 super chat. Keep up the great work, Mark. Go Trump. Faith B904. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your contribution to the broadcast. Thank you so much. No, we are going to keep up the good work. And I have to tell you, this is a lot of fun. I love, it's a different chapter that we've got here. Patriots we're now fully multimedia, and it's really just so much fun. It's a lot more work, but it's so much fun to just know that we can do, and I'm going to be honest with you, we can reach a lot more people, and we are reaching more and more people every day. When we started back on July 15th, I was looking at some of the numbers when we started on Rumble. We started back on Rumble, when we started back on YouTube, when we started back on Facebook and stuff like that, we had a few thousand people that were watching. The very first YouTube videos I was posting from the RNC, from the Republican National Convention, we're getting 1,500, 2,000 views. And now we're averaging somewhere between 6 and 20,000 views every single day when we do the podcast. And when we do special events like this, even more. And it's so much fun. I'm able to run around. I'm able to bring in these new flavors, and we're still able to do a typical talk show format every single day. So I'm really excited about it. And the best thing is there's nobody telling us no. There's nobody saying, no, that's not in the budget. There's nobody saying, no, that's a dumb idea. There's nobody saying, I don't know, maybe don't talk about Trump all the time. There's none of that. And then of course we have, we don't have anyone trolling our social media and commenting about things we shouldn't say. Well, I mean, my wife does that, but she's been doing that my whole life. Adventurous Carnivore, love the name. Hey, Mark, you are the best. Love from Jax. No one does it better. Keep being you. Adventurous Carnivore, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. That is super generous. That is super generous. We will not forget that. And yeah, we will put that to good use. We have a couple more trips coming up. Like I said, we have 3 minutes now till debate time. So real quick, let's get Patriot Mama in here too from Ohio. I just left our live commission meeting and it was disappointing. They definitely picked who could speak and they were 99% lefties. That's not normal at our meeting. Yeah, I know it's a bummer, but that happens to a lot of people. Hang on, I got to grab a battery from over here. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I don't want my other phone here to die because it's how I'm checking on the Rumble peeps. And that means I got to look at this. This is great. Clink. And now, is it charging? There we go. It's charging. All right. So there we go. Let's go back to, oh, whoa. Rumble's going crazy. Harley Quinzel, $10 Rumble rant. Where are you, Harley? Harley Quinzel writes, love our Patriot family. Wish Hannah and Jay was there with you. Well, I don't because there's only one bed in the hotel room. But thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. $10 also from, look at this. You guys are Patriot Carol. Love what you're sharing. Thank you, Patriot Carol. Just wait because we have a whole other day. We have a whole other day here in Philly. And TM Rose. Oh, hi, Trish. You didn't read my first $1. Trish is back. I'm out of booze for the drinking game. Your $1 Trish is back and more to come, but I don't get paid till Friday. Trish, yeah, she's our $1 queen. She tosses $1 at us, but she does it like 20 times. So we definitely appreciate that. All right, listen, I'm going to go ahead and turn this up because this is going to start now any minute now.
And I have to say,
or
as we
in
are
1
just
minute and 24
less
seconds.
than 2 minutes away, this such an extraordinary moment, and especially, Rachel, when you consider that these two people that have been the center of our lives for the last 2 months have never met each other.
Have never met each other. And Harris said, if you got something to say it to my face. The question tonight, does Donald Trump actually go there? He's questioned her racial identity. He's questioned her intelligence as well, or does he stick to the issues?
Do we think, by the way, that they're going
audience
to...
they're likely going to have in this race. It will be interesting to see if...
Do we think that they're going to shake hands? I say no. I don't think there's going to be a handshake. I don't think there's going to be any touching whatsoever. I think they're going to go right to their podiums and they're going to ignore each other, and they're just going to start in. That's my... If you guys have any guesses, now would be the time to make them, because the debate is about to start here in 40 seconds. Oh,
and I have my doubts that we're going to see that handshake, but what you are going to see is a spirited debate, and perhaps the most consequential general election debate we have ever seen, because almost certainly going to be the last one. So with the stakes
that's probably
so high,
true.
The presidential debate just moments away.
The first debate and the last
we have
debate
the
all at
entire
once.
news division keeping an eye on everything. We are going to be fact-checking on our live blog.
Oh, don't worry, we got that covered.
Right here, the debate now just 10 seconds away.
Jonathan Carl, don't worry about fact-checking. We will fact-check on your behalf. Missy, thank you so much.
Right now, to David Muir.
I appreciate your super chat, Missy. Here we go, everybody. It's starting.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns.
Rules are for fools.
The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Go. Somebody yelled go. Oh, here they are.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people.
Did you say fart?
We know that young families need support.
I think she said fart.
To raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses.
A mother from another mother.
My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
So far, we got stoic
Economists
Trump.
have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
The backs of middle class.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. That's it. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
He brought up
they
the
are
cats.
taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy.
This is all scripted, by the way.
Since the Civil War.
This is what she's been.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So,
are we just responding back and forth?
Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people.
Oh, there's a little podium.
I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes.
She's going to say that's racist,
She doesn't have a
by the
plan.
way.
Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year.
How does she argue that it
Do
would
you
be,
believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
That's right.
I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done.
True.
They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place.
True.
So how do you respond?
Yeah.
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America.
Let's be clear.
He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military. Basically sold us out.
You're buying chips from China to improve our military.
Should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers'
We don't
rights.
end up having on the short
But
end of
what
the
Donald
stick.
Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job.
Virginia,
but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened.
True. It's not a federal issue.
Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to
He didn't say that there was, but
well,
thank
as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Kamala Harris
and they did
vetted those
exactly
people,
as he
and her
intended.
Senate
And now
approved
in
them.
over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans,
There's no such
which
thing as a
make
Trump
it
abortion ban.
criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest,
just screaming now,
being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, When Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her,
basically, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
If you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond. But I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe
I thought
v.
the mics
Wade,
were supposed to be muted.
you could do abortions
Oh,
in
look,
the
they turned-
7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board
the mics
in this
were
country.
supposed to be muted,
Vice
but
President
look,
Harris, you were tasked by
funnily enough,
President Biden with
the
getting
mics
to the
aren't
root
muted
causes
anymore.
of migration
That
from Central
Kamala Harris
America.
is getting attacked.
We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly.
Have they?
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem
Kill Bill.
instead
I love
of
that
fixing
movie.
a problem. And understand,
I
this
love the great
comes
movie.
at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer.
What is this?
And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about
Well, they're also not
is
paid
you.
like you.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
She's doing that because she thinks
and
that
I'll tell you, I
talking
believe
about
you
Donald Trump's
deserve
rallies is going
a
to rattle
president
him.
who actually puts you first.
She's trying
and
to bait
I
him by
pledge to you
saying
that
people
I will.
leave his
Vice
rallies
President
because
Harris,
they're
thank you.
bored.
President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
The memes made it to the debate.
As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
She's cackling.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
Including
the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney
and
Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
True.
So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation.
Yeah.
They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Mm-hmm.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse
President
me,
Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents.
He was a president, by the way.
On the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States.
He never said
that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
He didn't say that either.
Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
we do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't.
Oh, now we're going to get to fracking.
You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't.
They're going to let her get away with this, by the way. Watch.
Decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed.
She's not going to answer any of
So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States.
That's not what you said.
I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
She's not answering any of the questions.
And
They're going to get a let her get away with it.
We are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes.
They're not going to fact
by
check
3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
What does that have to
and
do
my
with
focus
fracking?
then on protecting
fracking.
women and children from
misunderstood.
violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot of
are not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president
the peaceful
in a moment of crisis.
Of power is such an
Mr.
idiotic
President,
question.
on January
is this really
6th,
what we're
you
wasting
told your supporters
time
to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer. that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted?
Here.
Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
All true.
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
David Muir, try pointing out some of the discrepancies
I
in
was
Kamala
also
Harris's
an acting
speech.
senator. I was there.
David Muir only ever
and
comments on Donald
day,
Trump's comments.
The President of the United States incited a violent mob.
No, he didn't.
To attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did
Singing
the
Jimmy Buffett
president
songs
then at
and
the
drinking
time say?
margaritas.
There were fine people on each side.
Is he
Let's
going
remember
to...
that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point.
Let's be clear. I'm going to give
Donald
it.
Trump,
That's a
the
let's be clear.
candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this
Oh my gosh,
and the
these
outcome
are
of this
all
election
lies.
is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course
there's so many lies
for
I
the
can't
future
even keep track.
and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you, because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said there was no
we didn't have standing.
Fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania.
Do a special on it, David.
We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes
that's not what he said.
Did not lose the election.
He didn't say he didn't say
it. He said it was President Biden and yourself.
He's lying.
But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences.
Hear, hear.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
How is he suppressing a vote?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world.
World.
Viktor Orban said it.
I feel like this
He
is a
said
losing issue for
the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the
I think we're going to do very
still
well.
being
I love
held.
that.
Americans
and
among
blah, blah.
them. Vice
And
President
I think
Harris,
we're
in
gonna do very
December,
well.
you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent
There's
civilians.
a whole bunch of
You said that
pro-Palestinian
9
people
months
outside
ago.
my
Now
window
an estimated
that aren't happy with her,
40,000
by the way.
Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here.
All right, let's be clear.
On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis.
This is like the Ukraine-Russia thing. This is another history
who were
lesson.
simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so, absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different
That's all true.
Spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
I believe that.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy.
Oh,
it is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
You're going to lose the foreign policy battle with Donald Trump.
That he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Oh, love letters.
And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear.
That's not true. Vladimir Putin endorsed Kamala Harris
with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it.
Yay!
Because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News
there's a
presidential
commercial
debate
break?
from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia.
Oh, there's a commercial break. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Man, first of all, Kamala Harris, so she comes out, in my humble opinion, and she's reading off of the script. And she's doing everything she was supposed to. She'd memorized her lines, but her whole platform, her entire platform is, I'm going to try to embarrass Donald Trump. Her entire platform is, Donald Trump's rallies, people get tired and leave. Donald Trump is the laughingstock of the world and the dictators around the world. Donald Trump is all the people that Donald Trump fired don't like him. Which I'm going to be honest with you, I was recently fired, and I don't like any of those bastards. So I know that you're not going to get along with the people who you fired. You're not going to get along with the people who you treated poorly. And that's just the way the world works. But man, there's no actual substance, no shock, from whatever Kamala Harris is saying. Everything she does is deflect from the actual question and then try to turn it around on why Donald Trump should be ashamed of himself or embarrassed or try to trigger Donald Trump. The other thing I realize is that Donald Trump is doing something interesting, which is he's coming up with, I believe, the better lines. He's fiery, but he's not disrespectful. He's intense and passionate, but he's complimentary. He complimented David Muir and ABC News. He said, you guys actually covered this really well. And there have been so many lies thrown his way. There have been so many pieces of and again, I feel like at this point, and this just goes to show you why why we do this every single day. For those of you that are like, Mark Kaye, why do you do this every single day? Why are you out there every single day? In fact, I was talking to a guy in the park, the guy with the big loser sign, and he reiterated, or he regurgitated the lie about the generals, about the suckers and losers. And there's so many people out there. I mean, these lies travel so fast, and the truth, what's the whole thing? Lies travel fast, but the truth doesn't. It's something like the truth is, the lies travel around the world before the truth even gets out of the garage. Something like that. But that is a factual statement. And that's why you need to keep coming back and combating all of these things. Kamala, here's what's going to happen. I can predict already. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen after this debate. CNN, ABC News, all of these people are going to slobber over Kamala Harris. They are all going to say, OMG, she came prepared. She handed it to Donald Trump. She pointed out his lies. She wasn't afraid. She was a strong woman, and Donald Trump got flustered, and Donald Trump couldn't handle it, and Donald Trump was blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what they're going to say. Fun fact, they were going to say that no matter what, because they're running out of Democrats over there. They already lost. They already lost Joe Biden. They can't afford to lose another one. So they were going to do that anyway, but they're going to pull some of these pieces. They're also not going to mention the fact that David Muir, who I feel bad for promoting or speaking positively about the other day, David Muir is the new Chris Wallace. David Muir, and you'll watch this, he has pointed out something in Donald Trump's answers that he disagreed with, or he's called Donald Trump basically a liar, or he said the facts don't back that up, or he said, I watched your video and you didn't seem like you were being facetious. You didn't seem like you were being sarcastic. I watched the video. That's not what I got out of it. But he's not doing that for Kamala Harris at all. Not once have they fact-checked Kamala Harris or questioned any of the multiple lies. They said to Donald Trump, Lindsey Davis goes, by the way, you cannot kill a baby in any of the states. Donald Trump never said you could. He said there are governors that want to. The former governor of Virginia, for one, that creepy guy, the Governor Tim Walz, the postpartum abortion is something that has been floated. It's not, you can't fact check that, or you can, but you're going to find out. These are ideas that have been put out there. We have recordings of them. And it's not something Donald Trump said is happening. But of course, she points out it's illegal to kill a baby in all 50 states. Well, no poop, Sherlock. Thank you for that, beautiful. But they don't fact check any of Kamala Harris's stuff. They didn't say, by the way, this has been debunked, the story about the suckers and losers. This has been debunked, the story about Charlottesville and Donald Trump saying there's good people on either side. These have all been debunked. They're quiet. They're going after Donald Trump over and over and over again. David Muir asked him the same question 4 times about January 6th, which BT dubs, sorry, Keith, has nothing to do with our political discourse. It's nothing to do with people's life. In fact, the question beforehand, Kamala Harris comes out and goes, you know what? We need to talk about all of the things that people care about. We need to talk about how we can make America's lives better. People don't want to hear about this. They want to hear how we're going to make their lives better. How does talking about January 6th and the peaceful transfer of power make people's lives better?
That's what I want to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop.
I want the war to stop. There's no winner in war.
That are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more.
That is true.
Because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore.
That is true.
So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left.
That's true.
I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III.
Don't kid yourself, David.
And we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign
don't clarify,
like
David.
a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President
Nobody
Harris.
wins
I want to
a
get
war.
your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir
These are
Putin, and would it
stupid
be any
questions.
different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries,
and you
to
failed.
defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
That's exactly
because
right.
Everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the,
national security
of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO.
Or like 90%.
We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol
Thanks for
Hill,
sharing the debate and your comments. You are very welcome.
Withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
So yes.
4 presidents
said
they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result,
yes, I bear
America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war.
Oh, tell that to the 13 families who lost their children.
There is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world the first time this century.
That's not true.
But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
His national security advisor.
He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect.
Camp David is
and
a
this
place
gets
of storied
back to
significance
the
for
point
elitists
of how he has consistently
and Democrats
disparaged and demeaned
who
members of our military,
want to make themselves
fallen
feel
soldiers,
self-important.
and the
Camp
work
David
that
is
we
a
must
place
do to uphold
where you're
the
excited to
strength
go because it means
and the
you've
respect of
earned
the
a
United States of
specific
America
stature in
around
the
the
government.
world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers.
True.
And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst
I want to
withdrawal.
move on.
And in my
I bet
opinion,
you
the
do.
most embarrassing moment in the history of our
I would
country.
like to move on.
And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we
She
have
wanted a different answer.
someone who
She
wants
didn't get
to be
the answer.
president who has
She didn't expect him to say, I don't
consistently,
care.
over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5.
The Central Park 5.
Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want
talking about
better
spreading
than that.
lies. Holy cow.
Want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other.
I got a finger at a point at you.
I meet with people all the time
Sorry.
who tell me,
That's inappropriate.
can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
Well, David Muir asked the
regardless
question.
of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
That's true.
And I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy.
Black people
they have
love
no idea what a
Donald
good economy
Trump.
is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this.
Yeah.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation I believe,
David Muir is going to say,
really
we can confirm you are not Joe Biden.
As opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling.
We can confirm Kamala Harris
calling.
is not Joe Biden.
Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away.
Let it rot.
I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
You're 100% going to.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Because she knows.
60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be
oh my God, how long
to
is this
strengthen
time
the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
She keeps bringing up all of these.
In terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. And number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat.
It's been 90 minutes, by the way.
The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who
they're
has
not jacking
been
up home insurance because of hurricanes.
The victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go.
Climate change.
We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back
my God, David Muir. David Muir turned out to be such a slime ball, huh? I'm going to delete the photo I have of him. I was so happy that I had that photo of David Muir, but man, what a scumbag that guy turned out to be. David Muir has debated Donald Trump. He's the Chris Wallace of this. He's the new Chris Wallace. It was Chris Wallace, now it's David Muir, and they're basically the same person. Man, I'll be honest with you. They front-loaded this debate with Kamala Harris-centric questions. They front-loaded this debate with questions that Kamala Harris was prepared for, that they thought would put her in a good light. They started with the economy, and then they went right into abortion. And they spent a long time on abortion, which is being a woman, being that whiny cry voice that she has, abortion's kind of her thing, even though I think it annoyed more people than that it embraced. And so then they started, then about halfway through, the tide kind of turned, and they got on these topics that they have to talk about. Once they did abortion, once they did January 6th, once they did the peaceful transfer of power, those are all topics that they front-loaded the debate with, and they knew that Kamala Harris would shine. They knew that those were anti-Trump topics, and they knew that this is something that she would be able to position herself as a strong candidate. Not that Donald Trump was a weak candidate, but they wanted to make her look good out of the gate. When they got to stuff like Afghanistan, when they got to stuff like oil, when they got to the fracking, she fell apart on the fracking. When they got to the Afghanistan withdrawal and the 13 dead men and women from the Marine Corps who were blown to smithereens, she said we saved hundreds of millions of dollars. That was her answer. 13 Marines are killed. What do you think? Hundreds of millions of dollars were saved. So there you go. That's a horrible answer. And then when they brought up the question about her becoming she became a black person, when he brought that up, Donald Trump said, I don't care what she is, Indian, black, I don't care. I don't care at all. And that wasn't the answer she was looking for. You could tell. If you go back and watch it, and you don't have to, I'll bring it up. She goes, she was expecting Donald Trump to say something really bad. She was expecting Donald Trump to go back and forth. He just goes, I don't care what you are. Be whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. And so she goes, well, we have to realize that Donald Trump has a long history going back to the Central Park Five. And whoa, head spin. Because again, everything was prepared. It was scripted out. She had every play in her playbook ready to go. And when Donald Trump didn't run the offense, she didn't have the defensive play dialed up because Donald Trump pulled an audible. And she wasn't able to handle it. This second half of the debate from Ukraine on is all Donald Trump. She literally admitted that she went and talked to Zelensky and said, you're going to get invaded by Russia. And he ignored her. President Zelensky, the guy's a clown, literally a clown. He was a comedian. I mean, I know what a paid clown is. I was a paid clown for years. He's a comedian. And she goes over there, supposedly this great attorney general, supposedly this fantastic senator, this stateswoman, the vice president of the United States, Madam Vice President. She goes over there. She sits down with this comic, and she says to the comic, Russia's going to invade you. Many people are going to die. And he goes, thank you for coming. And she leaves. She failed. She couldn't even convince a clown that she had intel, that the United States of America had intel that was detrimental to him. Anyway, that's basically what happened there. Now that we're wrapping, it'll be interesting to see how these closing statements are. I think it's good that Donald Trump has the last word in this, but man, ABC this is why, by the way, she didn't agree to the Fox debate. This is why she wasn't even going to agree to any other debates, and this is why there will not be another debate. ABC, whether they gave her the questions ahead of time or whatever they did, they put David Muir and Lindsay Davis in there, and Lindsay Davis, is that her name? They put her in there and they said, these are your people and they're going to take care of you and they're going to coddle you, and they did their jobs tonight. They helped Kamala Harris. But even with the 5 days of massive preparation, even with the help from the moderators, she still did not perform at the level that she needed to perform. And Donald Trump literally said, please be quiet. Or he said, quiet, please. And she shut up.
Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
She knows who's in charge.
Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements. And Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them,
you had the FBI find out.
And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like We're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and
Closing
from all of us
statement
here
was
at
fire.
ABC News. Good night.
There we go.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments. I'm Martha Raddatz. It was a lively debate.
Even want to listen? Should we listen to some of the guys?
To Afghanistan.
Should we listen to some of the post-debate comments?
John Carl, fiery.
Should we listen to John Carl?
Wow.
Does anyone want to listen to John Carl?
Wow, that was quite a debate.
All right, let's listen to a little bit of
Carl here with, of course,
yeah, we know who you are.
Rachel Scott.
We know who you are.
Our reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks.
All right, fine. Screw them. Screw them. Listen, I'll be honest with you. That was the best. Here's the thing that Donald Trump did brilliantly, and here's why by the way, Donald Trump mopped the floor with her. No matter what you say, no matter what you hear anyone else say, here's what Donald Trump did brilliantly. Donald Trump realized she was taking this tactic. She was all ready to go with the insults and the this and that. And Donald Trump said, screw it. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm going to be myself. And Donald Trump came with the zingers. She had no zingers. She was prepared for a closed mic debate. And this is where the debate, I guess you would say, inexperience comes in. She was like, okay, there's not going to be any mics, so I'm not going to be able to get any zingers in. There's not going to be any mics, so I'm not going to be able to say anything. Donald Trump got the zingers in. He got the zingers and he goes, quiet. Please be quiet, please. He said, I'm speaking. Does that sound familiar? I'm talking now. Does that sound familiar? He stole her lines. He disarmed her. And he was himself. He was complimentary, like I said, and he was also fiery. He was able to stick to the facts. And it was another one of those 3-on-1 or 2-on-1 debates. It was David Muir. I guess it was 3-on-1. David Muir and Lindsay Davis and Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And the problem these news networks have, and I just don't know why I don't know why they do it, is that now they look like they always claim, oh, we're not biased, we're unbiased, we don't have a political preference, we don't care, we're just here to be unbiased reporters of the news, and we're just going to provide information. They always claim that, and then they do crap like this, and nobody believes them. And we all just look at them and go, wow, look, you're actually just mouthpieces for the Democrat Party, which we all knew. Speaking of which, let's listen in for real quick.
So many things. Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he looked not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who, again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage.
Oh, see?
Looked like
I told you.
Marks is somebody that could serve as president.
I literally called this like an
hour ago.
That is certainly
how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you, the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where she was able
by the way,
to blame
abortion,
Donald Trump directly to his face.
By the way, abortion is not the most important issue facing our country. Anybody who believes that abortion is the most important issue facing our country clearly has no clue about what's actually going on, in the world. Listen, all right, listen, it's 10:49. And there have been a lot. First of all, thank you so much for all the super chats. There's more sirens because it's Philadelphia. Also, I believe Donald Trump's probably leaving. But thank you so much for all of the super chats. Thank you so much for hanging out. This was such a fun debate. I had such a great time. We are going to be live again tomorrow here in Philadelphia. And we'll bring you, look, the complete debate recap is going to come up tomorrow. I'm gonna have the highlights and the lowlights. We're gonna cut it all up. We're gonna go back over a lot of these things. But the consensus is, while Kamala Harris is going to celebrate tonight, and while the media is going to celebrate tonight, the celebration should really be for Donald Trump and the American people, because Donald Trump is currently winning in all of the polls. Donald Trump is currently winning in all of the swing states, and Donald Trump has a platform and a position, and he's got leadership credentials that will put Donald Trump was nothing other than Donald Trump tonight. And that's not going to turn anybody off. Kamala Harris gave no real credible answers to anything other than Donald Trump is bad. And as we've seen before, that's a playbook that just doesn't really fly with people. But anyway, listen, tomorrow, let me tell you a couple of things about tomorrow. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is like I said, I'm going to be here in Philadelphia. We're going to do another live show from right here, and it starts at noon Eastern. So if you want to watch us live, noon Eastern, folks, that's what we're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on X. We're on Getter, we're on all these places, and you can come and you can watch. My preference, by the way, and I know, and we got a lot of complaints about Facebook today, so my preference is YouTube and Rumble. Rumble's really probably the best. Look, Rumble is never going to do anything to us. Rumble's never going to shut us down. Rumble's never going to ding us for copyright infringement. Rumble's never going to demonetize us. Rumble, and I know because I have I know I have his number, the president and the CEO. I can just text me like, dude, WTF. But they are the true free speech platform. So if you can get on Rumble, get on Rumble. If you can't, YouTube is a fairly, and I know that there's been some problems with other people in the past. We've had pretty good experience with them, and I think that I have pretty good standing with them as well. So I always recommend YouTube. Facebook has just been the worst to us lately. And I know we have a lot of people who watch on Facebook, but you'll say, I hear from you every day how you're still getting suppressed and you're still getting shut down, and you try to share our stuff. I got like 5 people today tried to share our post, and Facebook said you're trying to get likes. I don't know what that's even about. So again, and then of course X, which is just a fantastic platform. Elon Musk bringing back free speech on X. So those would be my recommendations to you, but we're going to be back on at noon. And then tomorrow night, there's a bar here in town called the National Mechanics Bar and Restaurant, and we're going to have a Patriot meetup. So if you're in the Philadelphia area, or if you'd like to be in the Philadelphia area and come and hang out, I got a whole bunch of Rumble rants today. Bobby Gong sent us $50 and said, buy a round for everybody in honor of the 13 men and women who were killed at Abbey Gate. Semper Fi, because Bobby Gongs, and we love Bobby Gongs. He's one of the ultra MAGA. He's in fact the only ultra MAGA we ever interviewed. But he served our country, and he still continues to serve as a Patriot. And he sent $50, so we're going to serve some shots up. So if you want to come out tomorrow, National Mechanics Bar and Restaurant here in Philadelphia, 7 p.m. We're going to have a Patriot meetup, and any and all Patriots are welcome to come and just hang out and say hi. So look, that was it. Thank you so much for everybody for watching. Thanks for playing along. Look, I still have some wine left. I may have to run down to the bar and get something a little stronger. I'm going to be honest with you. But thanks for following. Make sure you subscribe. Whatever channel you're on, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you get the notifications going. You want to make sure that whenever we go live or we post new video or post new content, you're getting it. So tell that platform, I like what I'm seeing here and I want more of it. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks again for